Okay, so once again, we find ourselves in another situation like this. So, somewhere in the original Pokemon data, there was a beta type for bird type. Now, from what I understand, the bird type was supposed to be like a beta version under a different pretense of flying types. Now, in the prototype data, based on what I was able to find, the flying type in the bird type are kind of like their own category, but I would say that they probably just decided to scrap the bird type at some point and just stuck with flying because it was basically the same thing. So why create two different versions? I mean, it'd be like saying like a normal type and a flying type. They sound the same, but they are still two different things. So therefore, there's enough evidence to believe, hey, normal types are not flying types. Flying type moves like fly, drill, peck. Um, you see the difference compared to like moves like body slam, stomp, or for those stab bonuses. Again, the pure Pokemon. The attack bonuses and all that. However, stab formulas work, because I always forget. But anyways, so basically the way it works is, I want to say that it really depends on the prototype Pokemon, and usually when you look at the final version of the games, the prototype, it was any Pokemon that was missing, though, basically. Out of, like, if you play like the ones that had the 151, but compared to the ROM that it seems like I managed to get my hands on, it seems like the bird types were supposed to be like the legendaries, but they weren't flying types. And then you had a couple Pokemon where they were flying types and bird types. So, I mean, it's very possible that maybe the bird type was supposed to be like something else, but then they probably thought there was too many similarities between flying type and bird type, so they decided to scrap it all together. Because ultimately, in the end, the way it works with the weakness charts and all that, with the way Pokemon's bird type would have been, they didn't really get too far in development with it, so there were no weaknesses, there were no resistances, there were no immunities. So basically, I would think it would just make more sense that it would be a flying type, basically. Some moves were actually called bird type. And what's also very interesting is I've actually uploaded this on, according to like some of the beta move pools, Articuno and Moltres, for example, would have learned Drill Peck instead of Peck, and this would have been when you caught them. So like Articuno would have known Ice Beam and Drill Peck, and Moltres would have known, I think, was it Ember and was it Fire Spin? It was either Fire Spin or it was when you caught Moltres. Moltres had Fire Spin and I believe Drill Peck. But Drill Peck was later on they after all the bird type moves were eventually changed to flying type. So that's my guess. They probably at one point were thinking, we could do something with this, and they try to branch it off with like different things, but the problem was, though, I mean, bird type Pokemon would probably still get the stab bonus because, hence, like, when Articuno used like Drill Peck, it would. But they changed it. They eventually changed it to flying type, and then therefore, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres were flying types, and then they were also their respectable elements like a fire, electric, and ice type. So. But again, if you're trying to fight like Articuno and Zapdos, or Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno, use rock types. If you're trying to like go after them, because the thing is, like especially like a physical attacker, you could do like ×4 damage to them, and especially if you nail a critical, it's like an instant death, guaranteed. Especially if it's like a physical attack. Like Rock Slide, like if you're trying to catch them, different story. But if you're going for like playing competitively, throw out rock types, because our Zapdos is the only one I can think of that would be a ×2 instead of a ×4. But if you're using like a rock or a ground type, Zapdos is gonna have a hard time because of physical. Like Rhydon could easily take on Zapdos because it's immune to electric types, and it's not very effective against when it starts using its Drill Peck. So its physical attacks and its physical defense would actually save it in the end. So if you're trying to catch legendaries, again, Rhydon's never a bad Pokemon. Even Rhyhorn can take on Zapdos if you know what to do with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they changed that because of not too many similarities, and maybe at the time they just didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. Also, here's something else really interesting to think about. If you remember in the anime, there was one idea where Gary was like flashing like he had like 10 badges at the very beginning of the game, and some people have made that joke like, where did those other 2 badges come from? You know, I'm still looking into this one, and I believe there's even more prototype data that hasn't been leaked yet that maybe they might have changed or scrapped altogether. But at one point, I wouldn't be surprised there were 10 gyms instead of 8. Who those other 2 gym leaders would have been, it's possible. One of them could have been going back to the Kapumon days. If you don't know, Kapumon was the 6 days before, or the 6 years before Pokemon became Pokemon, Pokemon. Pocket monsters. It was eventually changed from capsule monsters, but the idea still was the same, though. You know, everybody would use these little capsules, and it was funny because Yu-Gi-Oh actually had a series that actually arced that once they found out that they gave up the copyright for it, I believe. It was eventually, you know, there was that saga of Yu-Gi-Oh that took on capsule monsters, so it was thanks to Pokemon that Yu-Gi-Oh got that idea. So that's actually a lot of things a lot of people don't know. So that's where that came from. There was actually, I think there were also 2 capsule monster Yu-Gi-Oh games. There was one of them was PS1 only, and then there was the one on the PS2, Capsule Monster Coliseum, I believe. A fun game. If you're a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, you know, check it out. You know, if you've never played it, you'd actually enjoy it. And what else was I going to say? Okay, so yeah, bird types are similarities. They got to scrap them. I really would like to know. I mean, there could have been evidence to believe that maybe at one point that like the steel type was supposed to be introduced, but maybe at the same time not really. I do remember in the prototype of Gen 2 though, according to someone, there was actually a dark gym leader, and like you go into the gym and it was kind of like Morty's gym, but you had to like the electricity was out, so you had to find your way through the darkness and all that, and you couldn't even use flash to see your way through it. So it's like it's pretty cool actually. It kind of reminds me of Corpse Party if anybody's played that series, where like, you know, you're running around this old haunted school in a parallel dimension and all that, and there's all sorts of crazy things happening everywhere. You know, so I don't know. It's really interesting how many ideas Pokemon once again scrapped, and you know, if you really pay enough attention, you know, you'll find this stuff in the game's coding. I thought it was even more hilarious in a lot of ways and amazing that, you know, even in the final version of the Pokemon games, a lot of this stuff is still there. So for the people that say, well, it could be fake, well, not necessarily, because again, there is reason to believe that there were tons of ideas that were scrapped prior to the creation of the final version of the games, and due to cartridge limitations, I can definitely see why they definitely had to cut back on that. You know, it just makes me wonder how much different would a Pokemon have been if they wouldn't have made sequels after Gen 2, you know, because they, you know, a lot of people wonder, oh my god, like they were never going to make like a Gen 3, and that was why, because Gen 2 had so much content that was scrapped, and that's what they were thinking about just utilizing. So imagine how much different Pokemon would have been even if they would have had like 600 something Pokemon that were literally scrapped because cartridge limitations, and then yet they just kept making new Pokemon games because people still, I still honestly think they would have kept making games because, again, it was something Satoshi Tajiri wanted to do, and they kept succeeding at it. You know, they just thought, well, you know, it was just one game we were going to make, and maybe make a sequel because of all this content. But then you see it pick up in popularity, and everybody's wondering when's the next game's coming out. So it's like, okay, might as well keep doing it, right? But anyways, like I said, if I find anything else, I'll make a video about it. But as of right now, I'm still digging. So again, keep an eye on that. And I always keep forgetting to say this, but it's true. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to this channel, like this video. Let's try to get as much support as we can, because I really want more people to know about this stuff. Honestly, I want more data miners to, you know, if you can find prototype data or stuff about Pokemon you don't even know about, you know, let's see if we can solve these mysteries. You know, let's see if we can find out who all the missing those were, and all this, you know, all this cool stuff that like even like someone like Helix Chamber would have done. Even though, you know, there's that controversy that was kind of surrounding it. But eventually, like, all the stuff was leaked from, like, Game Freak servers. To some degree, it was true. And so there's evidence to believe there's a lot of information out there that we don't know about that is true, just waiting to be discovered.